The STRAT was supposed to be one of Las Vegas's boldest bets, a massive vertical statement planted on the north end of the Strip that would change how the city grew. When it opened in the late 1990s as the Stratosphere, it wasn't just another casino trying to compete on rooms or table limits. It was marketed as a landmark, the tallest structure in the city, a place you had to see whether you gambled or not, thrill rides hanging over the skyline, a revolving restaurant in the sky. The idea was simple. If Vegas was going to keep reinventing itself, this was the future. But decades later, that future never arrived. And in 2025, the STRAT feels less like a bold experiment and more like a case study in how Vegas can misread its own evolution. The first and most obvious problem has always been location, and it's a problem no renovation has ever truly fixed. The North Strip has been unstable for decades, cycling through ambitious projects that never quite reach critical mass. While the center strip thrives on density, walkability, and non-stop foot traffic, the STRAT sits apart physically and psychologically. Tourists don't naturally drift there. You don't end up at the STRAT the way you end up at Bellagio or Caesars. You have to choose it. And in modern Las Vegas, anything that requires a deliberate decision instead of spontaneous curiosity is already fighting uphill. That isolation affects everything. Walkability matters more than ever now that visitors are more selective with their time and spending. The Strip has effectively become a series of mini districts, each packed with attractions close enough to keep people circulating. The STRAT exists outside that ecosystem. Guests often have to take a rideshare just to get there, and once they arrive, many realize there's little reason to stay beyond the tower itself. When a resort doesn't benefit from shared traffic, it has to work twice as hard to justify the visit, and the STRAT hasn't figured out how to do that consistently. Inside, the casino floor reflects that struggle. It doesn't feel dead, but it doesn't feel alive either. The atmosphere lacks momentum, the layout feels dated, the energy subdued, and the gaming experience skewed toward low-stakes play without the excitement that usually accompanies it. This isn't a place where crowds organically build or where players feed off each other's energy. It feels transactional. People walk in, play a little, maybe kill some time, and then leave. In Las Vegas, that's a dangerous pattern. Casinos survive on dwell time, not foot traffic alone. The STRAT's attempt to position itself as a value-oriented property also puts it in a difficult spot. On paper, cheaper rooms and lower table limits sound appealing. In reality, budget travelers now have more options than ever, especially off-strip, where they can get quieter rooms, newer properties, and fewer fees. Meanwhile, Strip visitors increasingly expect something memorable if they're staying on Las Vegas Boulevard. The STRAT falls into an awkward middle ground. It's not cheap enough to feel like a steal, and not distinctive enough to feel like a destination. The hotel rooms reinforce that perception. Although renovations have taken place over the years, the reputation lingers. Many guests still associate the STRAT with bare-bones accommodations, dated finishes, and an overall feeling that you're settling rather than choosing. In Vegas, perception often matters more than reality. Even if a room has been refreshed, the brand memory sticks, and once a resort becomes known as a compromise, it's incredibly difficult to reframe it as something aspirational. The tower itself, the STRAT's defining feature, is both its greatest asset and its biggest limitation. The observation deck and thrill rides still draw tourists, but mostly as a one-time experience. People go up, take photos, scream on a ride, maybe have a drink, and then leave. That doesn't translate into sustained casino revenue, repeat hotel bookings, or long-term loyalty. Worse, the tower is expensive to operate. Between safety systems, ride maintenance, staffing, elevators, and insurance, the costs are constant. When your most famous attraction doesn't meaningfully drive repeat business, it becomes a financial anchor instead of a growth engine. Ownership instability has also played a role in the STRAT's stagnation. Over the years, the property has changed hands multiple times, each transition bringing new branding ideas, new priorities, and new cost structures. Instead of one clear long-term vision, the STRAT has experienced cycles of reinvention followed by quiet retrenchment. Rebrands promise momentum, but momentum never quite arrives. Staff morale suffers, guest experience becomes inconsistent, and the resort never builds the cultural identity it needs to stand out in a crowded market. The surrounding neighborhood only magnifies these issues. Resorts World and Fontainebleau were supposed to resurrect the North Strip, bringing energy and density back to the area. Instead, their struggles have exposed how fragile the location still is. Foot traffic remains uneven. Empty lots and stalled developments dominate the landscape. For tourists, perception becomes reality. When an area feels unfinished or disconnected, people assume there's nothing worth staying for, even if that assumption isn't entirely fair. Another fundamental problem is that the STRAT doesn't clearly know who it's for. It doesn't dominate luxury. It doesn't own nightlife. It doesn't control conventions. It doesn't attract high rollers. It doesn't lean into families in a meaningful way. In modern Las Vegas, the most successful resorts own a lane. Wynn owns refinement. The Cosmopolitan owns social energy. Venetian owns scale and conventions. Circus owns affordability and families. The STRAT floats between categories without fully committing to any of them. That lack of identity is especially dangerous in a city that now runs on branding more than ever. Vegas tourists don't just book rooms, they book experiences. They want to feel like they're part of something specific. A vibe, a story, a memory they can take home. The STRAT offers height, but height alone isn't a story anymore. The city has moved past novelty for novelty's sake. As Las Vegas becomes more expensive and more corporate, that identity gap grows wider. Tourists are no longer bouncing from casino to casino out of curiosity. They plan fewer stops, spend more selectively, and gravitate toward places that feel culturally alive. The STRAT often feels like an outlier, visible but disconnected, famous but not beloved. None of this means the STRAT is about to collapse tomorrow. It still fills rooms during busy periods. The tower still lights up the skyline. Curiosity still brings first-time visitors. But survival is not the same as success in Las Vegas. The Strip doesn't reward stagnation. Resorts that fail to evolve with purpose slowly fade into irrelevance, even if they remain physically present. The irony is that the STRAT's bones aren't the problem. The concept wasn't wrong. It was just incomplete. Vegas didn't need a standalone landmark. It needed a fully integrated destination. And without density, without identity, and without a compelling reason to stay longer than a single visit, the STRAT remains trapped by its own height. Every night, the tower stands visible from miles away, piercing the skyline like a reminder of ambition frozen in time. It's tall, it's iconic. And yet, in a city obsessed with reinvention, it feels strangely stuck. The STRAT isn't failing because it's the smallest or the cheapest. It's struggling because in modern Las Vegas, even the tallest building can feel small if it doesn't know what it wants to be.